Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to share with you something that I have on offer that I think you guys might really like. So if you guys are here, then you are probably ready to slow down and simplify your life. Am I right? I think so. That's why you're here. That's what I talk about. So one of my missions, if you will, is just to help busy people slow down, simplify and live the life that they really want to live for themselves. And I am a massive big advocate of actually just knowing that slow living, simple living, seasonal living, it's not like a one size fits all approach. It's going to look different to each and every one of you. And all I want to do is help you get started on that journey and teach you ways that have worked for me and help you figure out what you want your life to look like and feel like. So I have a free simple living guide, completely free. You don't have to do anything other than just pop your name in the box, pop your email address, and it's going to land straight in your inbox. And it is the perfect way to get started on this slow and simple living journey. It has elements to help you get started, things that I've tried. It teaches you a little bit about the seasons and why seasonal living is at the crux of everything. And so I just didn't want you guys to miss out on it. It sits on my Stand store, which is where I sell my products or give my products, whatever it is. And so I just wanted to let you guys know about it. You can find it by going to stand.store/the Slow Living Collective, and you'll see it's listed there as my free simple living guide. Pop your name in, pop your email address in, and I will make sure it lands straight in your inbox. Okay, let's move on with today's episode. Today I want to talk to you about September. Again, I spoke about September last week, but I want to talk to you about why September is the perfect time to start embracing slow and simple living. Now, I was having a conversation the other week with someone about how they felt that they just weren't getting there. They really wanted to live slowly and simply, but they just felt like it wasn't happening for them. And this is like midsummer when this conversation was going on, and I think sometimes in the summer we can feel like that, and this is why seasonal living is at the crux of it all, because sometimes we feel like, I feel like I'm going like 100 miles an hour. There's a lot going on. I've got this play day, I'm seeing this person for dinner, I'm meeting up with these friends, I've got this family function, I'm doing this, I'm going on holiday here, I'm doing that, and summer can feel like a lot. And I'm not saying that we should all be going like 100 miles an hour all the time, but it is a busy time of year. It's a busy time of year, but it is also the time of year where our bodies are sort of most able to cope with all of these different things going on. And so actually, while it feels like we're going 100 miles an hour, it feels almost bearable that we are going 100 miles an hour. And this is why September is the perfect time to start embracing slow and simple living. And if you're not listening to this in September, the next best time to start embracing slow and simple living is now. So why do I think September is so fantastic? And I think it's because it is this very changeable month, and we are just coming out of summer. Through September, we are starting to see some sort of very noticeable signs of autumn approaching, and we naturally feel this turn inwards this time of year. And that's why today I want to explore why embracing a slower and simple lifestyle in September can be the perfect time. You can start anytime. You can really, really start anytime. So if you're listening to this in like the dead of January or the beginning of May or the height of summer, you can start anytime. But if you feel like right now, if you're listening to this sort of in the moment, that summer is sort of passing and you are in the sort of stage where you're like, that was busy. And by the way, it's okay that that's busy. That's the whole point. It is the whole point that we actually just ebb and flow with the way the seasons go. But September can feel like the perfect time to start because we naturally come inside to ourselves. We naturally sort of turn inward. We are starting to move into that slower time of year where we want to maybe spend more time indoors, be a bit more inward, and I think it can be the perfect time to get started. We live in a very fast-paced world and it can be very easy to feel overwhelmed and stressed. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that my biggest bugbear with modern society is it expects us to live like it's an eternal summer, and it is not an eternal summer. It is not an eternal summer at all. So what does eternal summer mean? So summer is this period where we are just as vibrant. We're at top of our game, if you will. We are surrounded by the beautiful season of summer. It is warm, we feel more alive, more vibrant, we're getting more sunlight, we feel more awake, we feel better equipped to deal with a packed schedule. We don't feel like that in the winter. In the winter, we are getting less daylight, we are more tired, more lethargic, we are not as well equipped to deal with a packed schedule, and it can feel more stressful to us, and it can feel a lot more draining to us. We tire more, and that's because we're not getting the daylight hours that we have through the summer. And so, you know, I'm very much an outdoors person in the summer, and while I will spend time outside in the winter, I'll also appreciate that actually I like to spend time inside in the winter, and I just like to sort of top up my vitamin D levels nicely in the summer to see me through where it dips as well. And so it can be a time now where the seasons are changing, where we're going to move into autumn, where we feel the desire and the pull to slow down. And that's why I think if you've been feeling out of sorts, or you feel like, well, that was a 100-mile-per-hour summer, that actually you can sort of take a bit and you will naturally start to feel like you want to slow down. And slow living just really offers this sort of refreshing alternative to fast-paced modern life, I guess, and it just focuses more on reducing the pace of life, being more intentional with the things you do and let into your life, and being more mindful and present in the moment. So what is slow living? Maybe you're completely new to the idea of slow living and you're like, you've stumbled upon this podcast and you're like, okay, get me started, Amy. So slow living is this philosophy that encourages a more mindful, deliberate, simple and intentional approach to life. I think there's a lot of emphasis on quality over quantity and being present over being productive. And so it really advocates slowing down and just appreciating life's simple pleasures. And that helps you maybe create a deeper connection with yourself and with others, with the seasons, and maybe even the environment. And you will often hear me say that seasonal living is the absolute crux of slow and simple living. And I truly, truly believe that it is. Because if you think about it this way, slow and simple living is just a concept, and seasonal living is a wider part of that because it helps align life with the natural rhythms of the seasons. You are better able to have a connection with nature. You are able to have a more intentional, mindful approach towards your daily activities because you are living cyclically. You are living in line with the seasons. You are able to acknowledge when you're at your peak and when you're maybe not so much at your peak, and you are able to better understand your body because your body, you as a human, were made to live in tune with the seasons, and it's only modern society that has pulled us away from that. So when you better understand living with the seasons, then you are better able to, I think, adapt your thinking, and slow and simple living just becomes a part of that. So slow living, simple living, seasonal living, they are all part of the same sphere. And yeah, I truly believe that when you are better attuned to living seasonally, you will better be able to sort of incorporate slow and simple practices into your life. When you live seasonally, you are living more in harmony with the natural world. You are adapting to the changes in the weather, the daylight, seasonal produce that you eat, and you're just more attuned to the natural cycles of life. And so each season brings different opportunities, different challenges, and different foods. A fun fact about seasonal food and nutrition: did you know that the food that is basically seasonally appropriate in your locality at that time it's got its best nutrients? It's exactly what your body needs in your location right when it needs it. And it's really, really smart. But the thing is, we live in a world now where we can get anything, anytime, from anywhere. And so when you eat more seasonally, your produce is doing so much better for your body. But there are lots of other mindful decisions you can make as well, whether it be the clothing that you wear, the activities that you do, the home environment that you're creating. This mindfulness around all of these things in your life really just helps reduce the rush and stress associated with trying to live the same way all year round, trying to live like it's an eternal summer. So I think as well, I mentioned about eating seasonally. It really does help with like meal planning, and it's not a diet like a weight loss diet or anything like that, but diet in terms of like what you are putting into your body. You are eating what is fresh, what is local, and what is in season. And this approach really reduces the need for any kind of processed foods or out of season imports, which is good if you are concerned about climate change and things like that, but it also helps foster a more simple and healthier way of eating as well. I think as well, seasonal living really encourages sort of this natural ebb and flow in the activities that we do. Winter is very much a time for rest and reflection, while spring and summer are much more periods of growth and activity. And when you have this balance, it really helps prevent burnout. So often I hear people say that they are burnt out, and it's because we are continuing to live at the rate of an eternal summer. And so it's really important to sort of identify where this burnout is coming from. Listen, honestly, I could talk about seasonal living all day, every day, and how it's the absolute epitome of everything if you want to live slowly and simply, because it just allows you to slow down the pace of life. It helps you simplify your daily routines, and it just gives you a more intentional and fulfilling existence as well. I love it. But I want to go back to why now is the perfect time to start slowing down, simplifying, and what really the key aspects of slow living include. Now, obviously, I've waxed lyrical about seasonal living and why it's the epitome of absolutely everything, but slowing down and simplifying also incorporates things like mindfulness, being fully present in the moment, whether it's during work time or leisure time or daily routines that you might have. Maybe you're a parent or whatever that might look like. And it also includes embracing simplicity, and it is prioritizing less over more. Maybe it might be less possessions over a very busy or cluttered life, or maybe it's doing less activities but doing the ones and being fully present in the ones that you do. It is being able to make choices that are more sustainable, because often you are going to be having reduced consumption, maybe locally sourced products, food products, things like that. Because you are more present, you are able to create stronger relationships with family and friends, and maybe even in your community too. And also just finding balance. Now, I don't necessarily love the word balance, but it's because I don't think you can just achieve balance. I think Some days I drop the ball in one area, and as long as I don't drop the ball consistently in the same area, that is my goal. And I heard this once, that, you know, sometimes I am a great mother. Sometimes I am a fantastic wife. Sometimes I give my business my absolute all and my work. But you know what? Sometimes I'm rubbish in every single one of those areas. And it's just natural. It does happen. And what I don't want is to consistently drop the ball in the same place. For example, let's just use my marriage as an example. I'm not going to consistently drop the ball in my marriage, because then my marriage will suffer from that. So I might have a week where I'm a particularly crappy wife, and I'm probably the week that I'm having my menstrual cycle, right? But you know, what I don't want is to consistently drop the ball in that area, because it's no good if I'm like a cracking mother and a successful businesswoman, but I'm neglecting my marriage. And the same works in every area. Like, I can be a cracking wife and a cracking mother, but then I will let my business fall by the wayside. And the same with parenting. You know, I can be a cracking businesswoman and a cracking wife, but if I'm not being a good mother, you know, then there's going to be repercussions from that. So it's just about finding a balance, I wish there was a better word for balance, and not consistently dropping the ball in every area, and just slowing down and simplifying is just maintaining this sort of healthy balance between work and rest and play, and just not dropping the ball in the same place all the time. And we do drop the ball, we do drop it, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? We're not perfect. To err is human, and it's just about being really mindful and finding the balance of how to get things right most of the time. So why is September the perfect time? I drew you into this episode. I've chatted for the last 15 minutes about what slow living is, what simple living is, what seasonal living is, why seasonal living is so important in all of this. And I think September marks a new beginning. Now, I don't think it's the new year. I think the new year truly begins in the spring. But I think every season, the beginning of every season, whether it be spring, summer, autumn, winter, I think it offers the opportunity for a fresh start. The year is broken into quarters, it's broken into seasons, and I think for a lot of us, I said this in last week's episode, I think the start of the new school year actually, even though I don't go to school, I haven't been to school in decades, my children are home educated, but there's still something about September that marks a new beginning. And I think it's just a natural time when you get to, you know, maybe the next quarter, the next season, it's a natural time to reflect on our habits, our routines, and just make changes where we can. And I think autumn, more than ever, feels like that moment because, you know, we've been at full capacity through the summer for most of us. You know, it is a busy time, but we are at our best. But it feels like life is speeding by really, really quick. And when we're trying to live slowly and simply, it feels like you're doing none of those things sometimes through the summer. And so it's just a naturally busy season. And it's important that we don't judge ourselves, because that is like the crux of seasonal living, that we are going to have these ebbs and flows. And when you're in summer and you're in this busy season, it feels like a lot, and there are definitely things we can do to slow down and simplify things throughout our summer, but when it comes to autumn, it's like a natural time of reflection. And I really think that really does just sort of summarize autumn, that it really is a time for just reflecting and thinking about what's next. You know, we're going to start to feel very introspective as we go into autumn. And, you know, I think it's a time as well, I would say most of us don't particularly love winter. There are elements of it that are fine, right? But, you know, most of us are just holding on to get through to the spring again. And so when you sit at this time of year and you're sitting looking at autumn, which so many people love autumn, me too, autumn's my best season, but we sit looking at autumn and it's a fantastic season and it's full of beauty and colour, but we know what's coming, and we know it's winter, and we know we have around 3 months of winter that we have just got to get through. And so I don't know about you, but I often will sort of sit this time of year and think, well, autumn's coming, it's my favourite, we've got all the fun things that we love to do. We've got harvest time. We always take a holiday in the autumn, which is nice, in September. And then we've got pumpkin picking. My children love Halloween as well. We've got the change of the leaves, the just beauty of nature. I don't mind as it starts to cool down a little in the autumn, but ultimately I can sit and reflect on all of those things, but ultimately what naturally creeps into my head is, and then it's winter. And I think we distract ourselves slightly with winter because we roll out of autumn and straight into Christmas, and then we're like 500 miles an hour at the absolute worst time of year. Goodness me, like winter is a period of time where we should be really at our slowest and our simplest, and instead it's like capitalism on fire. You can't swing a cat for, you shouldn't swing a cat, but you can't swing a cat for, running into Santa Claus, or I don't know, buy this, buy that, book this, go on this train. And it is a lot. I feel very overwhelmed just being in proximity to Christmas. And I love Christmas, don't get me wrong. There are elements of Christmas that are absolutely beautiful, but simplifying it is an absolute must for me. And I know there's people listening like, well, what, Amy? Christmas is fantastic. What are you talking about? I love being an elf. And I get it. I do get it. But it is a lot, and it's very overwhelming at a time of year when we are at our slowest. We need to be at our simplest. It is just a lot. Remember, we cannot live like it's an eternal summer. And this is why I think we roll out of Christmas, which is another time of year that's 100 miles per hour when it shouldn't be. Summer, 100 miles per hour, fine. We are very much attuned to that. That is natural. But Christmas and the 100 mile an hour at Christmas is not really how we should be operating. I'm not saying you need to change anything, but I'm just saying acknowledge that your body and your mind and everything is not attuned to being at that speed and at that peak at that time of year. And so I think we all roll out of Christmas, we roll straight into New Year, and we are done. Everybody hates January. It's dark, it's miserable, it's depressive, and we've just peaked, really, because we've just run at like 100 miles an hour throughout December. Everything Christmas, we've been to grottos, we've been to garden centres, we've bought too many gifts, we've got gifts ourselves that we don't know where to put in our houses. Everything is a lot. We've been on trains and festive buses, we've gone to see Christmas lights, and it's all beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it is all beautiful and it is all lovely, but it burns us out, and we roll into the new year and we are done. We're absolutely done. And so it's just about being mindful. It's just about being mindful that actually maybe we give ourselves a break between taking the Christmas train and going to see the lights, or maybe we do the Christmas train this year and we go see the lights in London next year. It's just about being able to acknowledge how we feel throughout these different seasons. And so this time of year, I think, like I said, it's very natural for us to reflect on changes and our habits and our routines, and I just think that's why September can be such a catalyst for a positive change. I think we are right where we need to be to make those changes. And so if you're, like I said, the best time to slow down and simplify is any time. But if you're particularly coming out of summer thinking like that was 100 miles per hour, help, then September is a great time because it is so reflective as we move into the autumn. And so, you know, I just wax lyrical about Christmas, and embracing a slower life doesn't mean you have to give up everything you love. It's just about making intentional choices that feel right. And I think, and I'm going to do an episode about this as well, I think so often there are things that occur, whether it be, you know, in our lives, like Christmas. It could be anything. It really could be anything. And we will like pelt at it 100 miles an hour, and then we burn out. And I think when you can make more intentional choices, when you live more with the ebb and flow of the seasons, you try and slow down and simplify. And it's not perfect. It is not perfect. But I think when you do that, you experience less periods of burnout. I really, really do believe that. I think that if you're burning out, it is probably because you are somewhere in your life, you are going full pelt. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do an episode on this. But, you know, I always feel like I've got a lot of different balls in the air. You know, I have wearing lots of different hats. You know, I'm running a business which has so many different facets to it that I can't remember what I'm doing half the time. You know, I have this podcast, I have my mailing list over on Substack, which is also where I release my podcast as well with my show notes, and then I have some digital products all around slow, simple and seasonal living. I run my Rooted in Seasonal Living course. You know, but I also have like little other income streams that feed into that as well, and that alone is a lot to remember. But aside from that, like, I'm a home educator. I home educate my children, so you know, I have to work my business around that. So I don't necessarily always give it the attention that it needs or deserves. And you know, while I'm doing that, I'm also, you know, co-keeping the home with my husband, co-keeping the allotment. There's, you know, friends, family, all of that stuff. There's always a lot going on for all of us. And since I have slowed down life, simplified, lived more in tune with the seasons and everything that entails, I would say I experience burnout hardly. And there are always things that come up that are obscure, right, and out of the norm, and that's life, and we can't hide from them. And so those periods of time are probably where I feel a bit more burnt out. But other than that, it's not something that I experience, because I think I am a lot more intentional with the choices that I make. Now listen, embracing a slow, simple, seasonal lifestyle is so deeply rewarding, but I'm not going to lie to you and say it doesn't come with challenges, because it does. And so it's natural for us to live this very modern 24/7 eternal summer lifestyle. And that's how we have been raised. It's the world we've been raised in, lived in. It takes a lot to unpick and unpack that. And sometimes you're not going to get it right. But that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with sometimes things falling by the wayside. And then you're like, oh gosh, you know, I was doing that so well and I seem to have, you know, fallen, and it's, you know, I'm back living like I used to. And I think I said this in a previous episode. I used to refer to this a lot. When I think about slow, simple and seasonal living, I think of it as living a life of intention. I am intentionally doing these things. I am intentionally creating this life. And they become natural, of course they do, but it is more intentional than anything. It's not the opposite, which is living a life of default. It's living that life of hustle. It's fast paced. It's what the modern world wants for us. Like go, hustle. You know, be bigger and better and bolder all of that sort of stuff. We live in a world that values speed and productivity. And if you're not going fast and you're not being productive with it, what are you even doing, right? So here are some ways that you can start embracing a slow and simple living lifestyle as well. Well, actually, firstly, learn more about living seasonally. Download my free guide on slow and simple living. It's got elements of seasonal living in it too. Download my free guide on Stan Store. Get that sorted. Read through that and see how you feel, think, what feels right to you. But here are some other things as well. Set some clear intentions and goals. Like, what do you want? Why do you want to embrace slow living? Do you want better health, better relationships? Do you want to be more fulfilled? What is it? What are your intentions? What are your goals? And just break them down into really manageable bite-sized chunks. Really, really achievable steps. Start simplifying one area of your life first. Maybe it's your morning routine, or maybe you're going to adopt a more seasonal living diet. And then you can move on when you feel like you've grasped it. Don't try and do everything at once, honestly, which moves on nicely to start small and build gradually. Really just make small incremental changes that fit with your current lifestyle. This is the most important thing you can do, because so often I was talking about slow and simple living and people are like, well, that's great for you, Amy, but you didn't have a traditional 9-to-5 job and you get to stay home and home educate your children. And yes, all of that is true, but you can do these things within a busy life. And it's not, everybody's got stuff going on. Nobody's better than anybody else. And no, I don't have a standard 9-to-5, which means I currently recording this at 10 to 9 and I've missed the evening with my husband and my children. There are all of these things going on all the time. It just is what it is. I have to fit around my husband's work and home educating the kids. So no, I don't have a standard 9-to-5, and I wouldn't necessarily always say that's a good thing. So I do feel very privileged in the way I get to work. I do. But the most important thing to remember is that you can fit these small changes into your current lifestyle. We all have non-negotiables, whether it be going to work, taking the children to school, running errands, taking kids to extracurricular activities and classes and groups and hobbies and doing the shopping, cooking, everything. Non-negotiables, right? But we do have time, these small little pockets of time in our day, and we can make those small incremental changes in those. And it could be something as simple as spending 5 minutes doing something mindful every day, or maybe making one meal a week from scratch. And the really important thing to remember is to really start small and build up gradually, because when you try and change too much at once, you'll be frustrated and you'll probably just give up and you'll just go back to your life by default. And the fact that you want to try is an indication that what you're currently doing isn't working. So just start slow. Focus on one thing at a time and just gradually incorporate more and more as you feel comfortable and able. So another thing that I recommend is just engage with others who really share your slow and simple living values. It might be through podcasts like this, there's tons of creators on Substack, Instagram, might be friends and family. Talk about your experiences with slow living with the people around you, and I think you might find that it inspires others to join you, but also you can help support each other as well. And the biggest one, I think, and that I hope people would think of me when I say this, is just embrace imperfection. Be really kind to yourself. Slow living there's no race. It's not about being perfect. It's really okay to have days, weeks, even months when you feel like you don't meet your slow living ideals, and just use these moments to maybe reflect or learn or grow from them, go back to them. Don't use them as a reason to give up. You know, life is really unpredictable, and there will always be times where you are running at full speed when you don't want to. Just acknowledge them and try and return to slow living when you can, and don't beat yourself up about it. The most important thing is just trying to find ways to integrate it into your everyday. It might be taking some deep breaths before starting work, or being more mindful while you eat. Maybe taking a walk instead of driving where possible. You know, just look for ways where you can simplify your everyday tasks. And it might be things around your home, like decluttering, you know, decluttering your wardrobe, your home, cooking more simple, wholesome, seasonal meals. And just be kind to yourself. Just understand that slow living is a gradual process, and embracing the slowness is actually part of the journey, because meaningful change really does take time, and you're not going to be able to implement it all at once, and you shouldn't try, because you're going to get overwhelmed and burnt out, which is the exact opposite of what we're going for. So I think, you know, once you start slow and just build up, you will find that, you know, it will just become a natural part of your life. And just, you know, don't hold yourself to too much of a high standard. Like I said, life is unpredictable. Sometimes things throw you off. We can't avoid them. Just go with it and then return back when you are able. Okay, now like I said, September is a great time because you're going to naturally feel quite reflective. But any time that you are ready to start slowing down and living more simply is the right time. So while September, and this whole episode is about why September is a great time to start slowing down, any time is a great time to start slowing down, and all of the principles in this apply. It's just September, you know, you can capitalize on those feelings of introspection and reflection and things like that. So I hope this episode was helpful and has maybe made you think of some things that you might try, or maybe you're gonna try and start slowing down for the first time. There are so many facets to slow living. I really do recommend you know, just sitting with it for a while and thinking about what's going to work for you. I've got so many episodes, an entire back catalogue of episodes that I'm sure will help you in your slow and simple living journey. You can also find me on Substack, theslowlivingcollective.substack.com. You can also find me over on Instagram at The Slow Living Collective. So come check me out there. I would love to chat. And until next time, I will see you in my next episode.